Why does no one tell you this about owning a staff-heavy business? I mean, maybe it was on Google and I just didn't pay attention. Maybe you all know this, but I want to talk you through today what it's really like owning a staff-heavy business. And what I mean by a staff-heavy business is one where you do require, usually lots of staff in order to grow to a certain size. I could have an e-commerce business selling toy Lamborghinis from a factory, and it could be just me, an ops manager, and 4 warehouse staff, and we could be doing $1 million plus a year. So that isn't a staff-heavy business. At least that's not what I would call a staff-heavy business. What I'm talking about is a business where, and this is a cleaning business in what I'm talking about, where you have multiple sites in different locations at different times, at different places. You might have different jobs coming in at different times, different types of jobs, and you just need a large number of staff. Now, you could have staff doing 2 hours a week. You have some staff doing 20 hours a week, some full-time, some not. But you have a lot of staff and they're all equally as important as each other, whether that's 2 hours or one doing 20 hours. Now, I say that on a human level. From a business level, no, the person doing 30, 40 hours a week is more important. Of course they are. They're covering more jobs or they're working a bigger site. They are more expensive to replace. Although, having said that, other way around, probably more expensive to replace someone doing a few hours a week than it is someone doing a lot, because who wants to add another couple of hours when in this country, just take benefits. It's fucking easier. You know, people have said that to me. So let's talk through it. Let's start with this one, is that there's lots of names to remember. Today I got an email from a client, cleaner hasn't turned up. I said, who's that then? I didn't say that to them, but I had to check on the spreadsheet, I had to check with my ops manager and then figured out who it is and then got a hold of them and all good. But, you kind of, without, a massive master spreadsheet, you do need to remember those things. There's just a lot more information to process and to remember. And if you get a call if I had a call from a client and I'm on the phone, of course I'm going to handle it, but I'm not necessarily going to be like, oh yeah, that's Jane. She's not necessarily, especially when I have staff. There's lots of areas, roles, clients to remember that then match up with these members of staff who are cleaners. And so when you have, a bigger company, it's a little thing, but there is kind of I remember when I could literally be like, yeah, she's there, he's there, they're there, boom. But now, I mean, to be fair, my memory is decent, so I can actually remember a lot of them, but I don't need to because we have the spreadsheet, we have systems, we have things in place, but there can be a bit extra to remember. Like, I definitely can't remember how many hours per week per visit each one does. We have too many sites to remember that. But one look at the spreadsheet and I'm refreshed. Again, I do remember quite a few actually, especially the ones that, have been with us for like 10, 11 years when I bought the first business. The second thing, and oh, thank you, Rachel Reeves, you piece of shit. Lots of national insurance payments. Now, if we've got lots of staff doing less hours, then potentially there's not that much NI. It's more when there's, staff doing more hours. However, we will be, and we could be, if we had less clients but bigger clients, we have a real mixture. We would have less cleaners, but we would have more NI payments because each cleaner would be doing more hours. So, more national insurance payments, something, when they did all these changes and every, time they bring the budget out and they show how incompetent they are and how they don't know anything, I never used to think about NI. I generally would look at it and say, okay, budgets come, it's shit, they're stupid. It's not going to affect me too much as a, property investor, as a consultant, as a mentor, whatever. But this time and leading up to it, it's definitely been way more important and, just sent almost £7,000 of PAYE and national insurance to HMRC. I think almost half of that was national insurance, employers' national insurance. You might just think, well, it's tax, get on with it, grow, do more, but I'm not motivated. Yeah? Sorry, I'm not motivated. Can you see my motivation? Because I can't. Having lots of staff makes me, just having any staff and these NI payments makes me think, why do I flipping bother? I should have just done what I was going to do before, become a trader, driven around in a Lambo, sold you a lot of fake courses, made even more money, stop trading, keep selling courses, buy more Lambos, rinse and repeat, that kind of thing. Buy a Bugatti. That FX Alex G guy did it, so I actually know nothing about him, apart from the Bugatti stuff with Matt Armstrong, which is pretty cool. But the next thing about having lots of staff is turnover can be high. Your turnover of staff can be high because we have certain sites which are, 2 or 3 hours a week. That's not really attractive. And so people, those jobs in particular, they do tend to have a higher turnover than the one where it's like, well, you got 5 hours a day, it's practically full time. So what do we do in those, situations? Well, we're implementing quite a few things in terms of, keeping our staff loyal, but the turnover can be quite high. And what that means is you're spending money on recruitment. Recruitment's our biggest after chemicals and equipment. Although, recruitment is our third biggest expense, but that's almost a cost of sale, equipment and chemicals, like in this industry. So recruitment is our biggest cost after, our biggest shareholder, HMRC, takes everything, obviously. It's a big cost. And so, the more people leave, the more people we have to hire. We've estimated, if someone leaves, it really costs about £300 per person leaving. If someone joins and they leave in like a week or so, it's not as much, but it's more, if someone does leave sort of after maybe a month or so, and you might think, oh, it's 200 quid. Yeah, but that could be a couple of sites net profit or one site's net profit. My average is like 250. So again, we have like 100 sites. So you might think it's not a lot, but then it just takes 3 or 4 for that to be an issue. And look, sometimes it costs less, sometimes it costs more, but turnover is high, like there's no two ways about it. It is high. And, with this many staff, whilst we're trying to figure out how to keep everyone loyal, how to look after them, how to make sure they feel part of the company, they are all different and they do prefer different ways of this happening, which means we have to, look at how are we looking after each individual person then. And there's a lot of individual people to look after. And so that's something that, maybe takes more time and more cost. I will say, though, that in general, cleaning operatives have been fairly low maintenance in terms of like the culture and looking after them. In fact, I think most companies set the bar so low that by us doing what we think is decent, they are shocked and surprised at sort of the effort we put in. And I didn't always used to put this in. Honestly, I really didn't. I didn't treat people the right way. I wasn't horrible, but I definitely was a bit like, well, fuck that. We'll just find someone else, until I realized how much it cost. And look, without my staff, which 99% of the time, 99% of them are great, especially my management staff is incredible. But without them, there's no profit. But without them, there's less pain. So I always say this, people equal profit, but people also equal pain. And you can't have profit without pain. And hopefully, because you can have pain without profit. A lot of people have this. A lot of people think they're going to make profit and all they do is pain because they don't prepare themselves the right way. They don't even read a book on how to own a business. They don't even... Anyways, so there's a lot of pain, but there can also be a lot of profit that comes from it if it's managed correctly. If you're not a people person, I'm not necessarily. You see me at events on this, you might think I am. Yes, socially I am. But in business, different. I'm more of a, put me on a spreadsheet behind a screen. I prefer that. If you're not a people person, you have to learn to be one, or you're going to have a business partner who is, or a supervisor who is, or, hi ChatGPT, how can I fake being empathetic and people person? Fake's better than not. And if you're not good at being a people person, you're probably good at faking it. Recruitment costs. Because we have a large number of staff and, we can't always tie multiple people into multiple sites, and we don't always want to for risk mitigation, recruitment costs can they can eat into things, as I've already alluded to on the kind of, hiring cost when we have to get rid of someone. So these are things that, I didn't really think about because, my recruitment business didn't really have staff, 1 or 2 people at a few points. My property business definitely didn't have staff. And, my consulting mentoring business didn't need staff. It's me doing it all. I still mentor people, obviously. If you're interested, send me a DM. And so, I didn't really think about the national insurance cost, the cost of recruitment, the having to remember all these things, the having to look after people and check it, I really did not think about them at all. And, have I lost mistakes kind of through the process, through not maybe, thinking ahead about these? Yes. Have I, leaned on my HR team a lot through certain things? Yes. But I've learned so much. Hey, lost it. It's almost a month and a half into the year and I still haven't spoken to the HR team. Apart from an existing tribunal, haven't needed any help. So I'm in my soft boy era. Yeah, get me a matcher. Where's my matcher girlies at? And get me a matching fit, Cephi, I have a Gymshark. Gymshark's a bit cheap for me. I'm more of a Cephi girly. Something's working. And honestly, that's come from the past year of effing it up. And maybe me reflecting on thinking, well, why am I effing it up? Am I the Taylor Swift, in this situation? Am I the common denominator? So I hope that's been useful, people, before you think about setting up a staff-heavy business, because you might think, oh, I've got ages. I'll set up a cleaning business, I'll book Tej in or get his help, but it will take ages before I've got that kind of staff. Don't worry about it, okay? I'm here in 2.5 years from zero, to about 70 staff and $1 million turnover. We might have passed it because we just signed a wedding venue actually. It's quite a nice margin contract that is. And I'm not like, yeah, I know I bought 15 properties in 9 months, so I'm very quick and I'm impatient and I've grown this quickly. Honestly, I know people who would have grown it quicker. You know, I know people who are doing their own thing bigger, quicker. So I hope I'm inspiring, but I just know that I am not the person who's got the energy to be growing it like that crazy fast or big. So what I'm saying is it will come around quicker than you think if you are, you know, if you're that person, if you're really that good. Most of us aren't, you know? So people, please think about these things ahead of time. You know, I will be at 100 staff before I start to sort of chill in terms of like growth and things like that. And that's another, 30, maybe 35 staff actually if I look at seasonal trends of staffing. That's a lot of humans, people. It's a nice round number, but yeah. Anyways, that is things that no one tells you about owning a staff-heavy business. Thanks for listening to the Tech Talks podcast. If you haven't already, go on Spotify or Apple, leave a review. I used to be the most reviewed UK property podcast before the rest of them started taking over and making their podcast. I started the industry. I'm Dr. I'm Daddy Yankee. Yo soy Daddy Yankee, yeah? Yo soy de reina de reggaeton. Estoy aquí, estoy mi puta chingona madres, yeah? You know what I'm saying? Now, did you know Daddy Yankee is now a man of the church? He only does church songs. All that perreo, all that culo shaking. And now, el hombre de Dios, huh? Okay, people. Ciao.